Yes, my peeps. We're back, man. We're back. We're back. We're back. And you know what time it is already. We're here to do another What's Next? What's Next? And today, listen, I thought, you know what? Because everybody was getting on to me on Enza's stream earlier on today, and they were like, oh, you don't rate him and this, that, and the third. So I said, you know what? Let's rap about him. Let's rap about Alexis Mac Allister. That's the player that we're going to talk about. And what's next, for him. Now, what I mean by what's next isn't always related to, oh, we're selling him or, anything like that. No, it's just more about in terms of, you know, what's next for him in terms of his development, his career at Liverpool. How do you guys rate it, thus far? Obviously, I know we won the Premier League and all of this, but let's have a proper conversation about it. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, let's actually really delve into everything, properly, and especially Mac Allister. And I think Mac Allister, and I would love everybody's opinions in the comment section. So of course, make sure smashing the like, sharing, and subscribing, of course, to the channel. But I really want everybody's thoughts on Alexis Mac Allister. And I want you to take a second before we even dive in, just take a second to think, okay, cool. This is what he is. This is what he does well, doesn't do well, whatever it might be. And then kind of give me your opinion based on, everything that I'm about to kind of dive into. Now, Alexis Mac Allister, right? Let's take it back. So when he joined Liverpool, right? He joined from Brighton. I thought, you know what? We spent, was it 35 million, the release clause or whatever it was on him. He's just come off, winning the World Cup with Argentina. He played a pivotal, kind of role within the team, throughout the tournament. Bit of a surprise. I didn't know that he was gonna obviously perform that way. I don't think anybody did, but ultimately he did perform pretty well at the World Cup. Good link up play. With players like Lionel Messi and stuff like that. Right? Cool. So obviously his time at Brighton, and we'll take a look at his time at Brighton. I thought, a really, really good player. I looked at him, I looked at Caicedo. That for me, if Liverpool were looking to buy midfielders at the time anyway, when we were, him and Caicedo, those are the two players that you go out and sign. They work absolutely well together. You got one player who can break up play really fantastically well, good passer of the ball, good ball control and stuff like that. But he's the guy he's a bit like your disruptor, within that kind of midfield, but he can also play a bit of ball as well. And that's obviously Caicedo, can play in different positions. We've seen him play right back, etc. Cool. Got that one sorted. Then you've got Alexis Mac Allister. Now, I always looked at Mac Allister as, I mean, listen, based on the conversation that we had on Enza's stream, the way that everybody was talking, yeah, Mac Allister seems to be Tony Cruz and Xabi Alonso rolled into one. I didn't really see him like that. I kind of more saw him as like Gundogan, if I'm being honest with you. And Gundogan isn't a Tony Cruz or a Xabi Alonso type of player. What he is, it's almost like I'm trying to think of a buzzword that would resonate with everybody. What's a buzzword that everybody uses? He's not a metronome. He's definitely not one of those. I never saw him as one of those. Um, I don't know. If it comes back to me, I'll let you guys know, right? As I'm talking, because I'm just freestyling this obviously as we speak. But I looked at him very similarly to how I looked at Gundogan. And with Manchester City, obviously, we knew at the time anyway, Gundogan, kind of on his way out, Manchester City, I think, coming off the winning the league, all these kind of things. I thought, bloody hell, he's going to go there. And I don't know if they were in for him. I can't really remember. Someone would have to tell me in the chat, but it made sense him going there. You're going to the best team in the country, best manager in the world, best football, or top 3, 5, 4, 5, whatever you want to put it. But they play some of the best football, in Europe, and all that kind of stuff. It made sense. Then you come to Liverpool. I thought, okay, right, all right, we're getting Alexis Mac Allister. All right, let's see how this kind of works out, right? I thought one thing about Liverpool, and obviously this is more under Klopp, more than anything else, but one thing with Liverpool is we get players and we don't use them in the way that we've seen them used. We don't use them in the way that we've been lauding them, hence the reason why we want to sign them. That happened with Alexis Mac Allister in the first season. Started playing in DM and all. Yeah, it was. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. I thought he was bad that season. You could tell that that is not your position. You cannot play as a single pivot. It is a myth. You're not quick enough to cover ground. You weren't really good in the tackles. Yeah, obviously, he's really good on the ball, so he's always going to kind of have that anyway. But unfortunately, you're playing in a system where it's just one of you there. So you're getting bypassed a lot, all the time, kind of thing. So didn't like him in that position. No, I'm not gonna say no worries, but it happened. We moved on to the next season. Okay, next season now. We see Alexis Mac Allister. He's obviously, a bit further, I say a bit further forward, but he's moved up from that kind of position, I guess, so to speak. And I've looked at him and I've said, okay, so we're looking at him for this season, right? This is his heat map, right? And you can see, if you want to call it the left eight position, like slash kind of into those attacking midfield kind of areas, I would agree with that. I'm not going to really dispute that. Obviously, alongside Szoboszlai, alongside Ryan Gravenberch, for Arne Slot in the midfield. Now, with Arne Slot coming in, obviously, it's a bit of a different kind of vibe in terms of what he wants the team to do, how he wants the team to play. It's very similar, but it's, Savage said it best, it's like we slowed it down a little bit in terms of Liverpool. Now it's slow, it's boring as hell. It's not really that quick or anything like that. But guess what? Obviously, it's helped us to win the Premier League, so can't really complain, too much. But when we're looking specifically at Mac Allister, right? Everyone was asking me, like, what do I think? I think Enz asked me, or Savage, one of them, asked me, what do I think he does well? If we're talking for Liverpool specifically, I look at him and I think, in terms of what you do well, I'm like, he just reminds me of like a central midfielder, literally. And I don't know how else to really explain it, but if you just think of like old school central midfielders, just in general, but even if you want to apply that to the new school, he's just that. He's a central midfielder. He does a bit of everything. Do you know what I mean? He can defend. Well, he tries to defend, which he can do it a little bit. Let me not be disingenuous. He can do that a little bit, of course. It's not his strong suit, but he can do it to a certain degree. But he's better going forward. He's better in those forward areas. We've seen that, should I say, sorry, with some of the passes he was making in the final third. We've seen that when he gets the ball in that final kind of third, or in that kind of, as I say, left attacking midfield, whatever the hell you want to call it, when he gets into those positions and he is on that kind of half turn, he comes alive and he seems like a really, really good player in those kind of positions. So I kind of just looked at him and thought, yeah, he can kind of do a bit of everything. Do you know what I mean? He's a tackler. You know what I mean? He can score goals. And we can see here, look, 49 games, 7 goals, 6 assists. You know what I mean? He does his thing. He does his thing in that kind of sense. Do I think that means he's a world-class player? No. Unfortunately, my criteria is a little bit different, and he does not meet the criteria, if I'm being totally honest with you. I don't think he excels at anything at all, in terms of just him as a player. I don't think there's one thing I can say about him that, like, oh, he's or he's like elite at that, for example. Like, you don't even have to be at this level, but if I'm gonna just use an example, like Haaland is elite at scoring. You can cuss every other side of his game if you really wanted to. He's elite at doing that. And he does that so consistently, it puts him into those conversations. Whether you think his other parts of his game are not that great, it's irrelevant, because he does that elite. Like, he is one of the best, if not the best person who does that, right? That's how I kind of look at when I think about like world class and stuff like that. Do you have something about you, Mo Salah? Like, are you just so consistent, like, at what you do? Trying to think of other, like, Lamine Yamal. Though there's just players that I look at, and I'm not going to sit here and list them. Kylian Mbappe, if you want, Vinicius Junior, all these guys, they're world class players. Rodri, they have this thing about them that's like, nah, he does that elite. He really, really does that elite. And some of them have like a few things that they do elite, but just you might just have that one thing, right? Cool. I don't really feel like he has that, unfortunately for him. Now, it kind of does shock me, I'll be honest with you, because if I looked back at his time, obviously, when he was at Brighton, I didn't really look at him and think, nah, man, like, he was going to be at this stage. I understand. I get it. Obviously, when he played at Brighton, very similar in terms of the heat map and stuff like that, but a bit more centralized, more than anything else, but very similar to the one that he's obviously had here at Liverpool. You can see, and this is obviously Brighton, by the way, this isn't for Liverpool. You can see this is the season before he moved to Liverpool. Defensive midfield, attacking midfield, central midfield. As I said, he can do a bit of everything, and that's kind of what he's done for Liverpool. He's played in all of these positions, and you can see even here, most of the games obviously he's played is as that kind of defensive midfielder, but of course other games as well, he's obviously played further forward. Again, playing alongside in a double pivot alongside someone like Moises Caicedo, perfect. Now, do I think he can do that now for Liverpool? No, because I don't think Liverpool have anybody else in that midfield who he could do that role with, if I'm being totally honest with you. Moises Caicedo, the best defensive midfielder, in my opinion, in the Premier League. We don't have that. We have Ryan Gravenberch, who very good, very, very good, but doesn't possess the qualities that I feel that you would need if you're going to play like a double pivot. You need someone like that next to you if you're going to use a Mac Allister, right? We do not have that. Ryan Gravenberch cannot do that. I think that's very evident and very obvious. So when I'm looking at someone like Mac Allister and I'm looking back at his time, I'm thinking the player that I remember seeing, this was someone who, and again, it's the roles that they're obviously being given. So, take that into context when you're thinking about this. But someone who can take the game by the scruff of the neck. He led in that midfield for Brighton. He looked like a leader. He just looked like it in terms of the way that he was playing, commanding the ball, driving forward, all of these things. It wasn't so much about everyone's talking about, yeah, but he can run around, he can tackle. I don't like, that's not just going to be one of the, again, unless you're Kante and you do that at that level, I'm sorry, but I can't then look at it and think to myself, oh yeah, you know what? He's elite because he can do everything. I don't care if he can do everything. That doesn't make you an elite player. Do you know what I mean? Like James Milner could do everything. Is he an elite player? No, not even close. Do you get what I'm trying to say? But guess what? Very good professional, very, very good player. And that's how I look at someone like Alexis Mac Allister. I look at him and I think you can do a bit of everything. You know what I mean? If I needed to put you in this position, that, yeah, he could probably do it. I'm not saying he can't do it. And he could probably do it to a decent level. Do you know what I mean? We're not saying he's shit or anything like that. It's just more, I feel like the pedestal that some of you have put this player on is beyond ridiculous, beyond ridiculous. And then when you think about some of the other midfielders out there, like, and obviously you're always judged against your peers, right? So, and obviously when you call someone world class, it's contextual to, other players in and around, in and around you at the time. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, you think he's on the same level as a Vitinha? Yeah, right. What, Pedri and that? Like, nah, Frankie de Jong's and nah. He's not on their kind of level. Do you get what I'm trying to say? Like they've got a thing about them. That's why we laud them so much. They've got something about them that allows whatever you might think it is. I'm not here to talk about them anyway, but I'm just using them as the example. They've got something about them which is the reason why we put them on these kind of pedestals. Mac Allister's not there yet. I'm not saying he can't get there. Would never say that because he is someone I feel that should actually be there by now if he was used correctly at Liverpool. But unfortunately, in the 2 seasons that he's been here, I don't think he actually has been used correctly. Unfortunately for him, it is what it is, right? We've seen what he's like when he's at Argentina. It's a bit like Luis Diaz when he's at Colombia. Use them in that way. That's what you're going to get from these kind of players. Not to say what they're doing isn't enough. Clearly not, because we won the Premier League. I get that. But if I feel like if we can't have a conversation and it's not like, oh, because we won the Premier League, everyone's world class. Well, no, it doesn't work like that, because you wouldn't call Robbo world class at all. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like it's just those kind of silly things. Like you wouldn't call every player on our team world class. No one's calling Diaz or Gakpo or Nunez. No one's calling these players world class. But guess what? We won the league with these guys. So that conversation, yeah, don't even bring that conversation if you're gonna comment, in the video, right? Because it's just a mute point. What we're just talking about is just him as a player, and I feel that when I'm talking about like what's next, that part is a little bit interesting because I agree. I think that someone like Alexis Mac Allister works well if he's further forward for Liverpool anyway, clearly, because that we've seen him in those kind of positions, in those areas, and how good he is. Unfortunately, we've now signed a player who is better at him doing that in Florian Wirtz. Florian Wirtz plays in number 10. Everybody wanted Mac Allister number 10 and said, yeah, no, I'll play Curtis Jones and whoever. And then, whatever. We've got the midfielder and then play, someone like Alexis Mac Allister, further forward. Unfortunately, we got Florian Wirtz to do that. So now he's really just going to be a number 8. Because obviously he's not going to play DM because obviously Gravenberch plays in that position. So he's just going to be that kind of player. I think Liverpool may potentially be playing 4-2-3-1 next season. So you might then see a double pivot just over Alexis Mac Allister, probably Ryan Gravenberch. And then you've got obviously, Florian Wirtz or Szoboszlai, next to whoever. But you've got someone next to Alexis Mac Allister because for me, he is probably our best midfielder. And I think this is where people are getting it misconstrued. Yeah, misconstrued, right? Because I'm saying he's our best midfielder, people are taking that as what he must then be world class. It does not mean that. If I asked you who was Ipswich best midfielder, does that mean that they are world class? No, it doesn't. It just means that that's just your best midfielder that you've got within, within your team. And that's just, in terms of the way, we're looking at it and I'm thinking, all right, so how are we going to get, or how does Mac Allister get to that next stage? Now, I think in terms of whatever you think he's good at, and I don't really have many things that I feel like he's that like really good at. I feel like he's just a good player. I just think what he's going to need to do is maybe up the level a little bit more. So if he's going to be playing, let's just say he's going to be playing in that kind of double pivot. Let's just, as an example, just for the sake of it, right? He's going to play in that double pivot alongside whoever, right? I think defensively he's going to need to get a lot better, in my personal opinion. He's going to need to get better, because if not, then kind of, what's the point almost? Until I feel he gets to that kind of position, then yeah, I'm like, you need to get better defensively. I do feel like at times when you're on the ball, maybe better decision making at times. But again, that will be more me splitting hairs. But I think it's just more consistently performing at a high level. I never really thought he did. I always felt like with him, it was always kind of like under that. It's like he would have games and he'll have moments. Yeah, he performs at a really, really high level, but that's never really consistent, to be honest with you. We saw it like once in a blue moon, if I'm being honest. The rest of the times it was quite average. Do you know what I mean? If I'm being honest with Mac Allister, where even in games you're sitting there and you're thinking, he's not really doing anything at all. He's just literally just a midfielder on the pitch. It really is that. That's kind of really it. You've got Gravenberch first half of the season doing a madness in terms of what he's doing, and you're just sitting there thinking, all right, so at least even Szoboszlai, I'm not even saying Szoboszlai was even that great in totality, but he's offering me something. What is it you offer me in the midfield? I mean, like what do you bring here, like kind of thing, And I think that's where I get frustrated with Alexis Mac Allister, because I've seen the ability. What I saw at Brighton and obviously Argentina prior to coming to Liverpool, and in odd moments for Liverpool since he's been here, I'm like, bro, I feel like you've got it. You just need to show this a bit more consistently. Maybe that's just all he needs. And then next season, when we do start the season, if he can just continue that, if he can just perform at that high level. And again, this is what I'm saying in terms of when we call people world class. Like, you just calling them because you like a few of the goals that he scored. If I'm hearing that, I know you want to, like, we ain't conversating about that. Do you get what I'm trying to say? We need to see these players performing at high levels. You think Mo Salah just been doing this for 8 years or 9 years or whatever it is, and we're just like, you can just start putting everybody on the same level as a Mo Salah, like, well, I forget all of that. Man, need consistency. And we're not seeing that with Alexis Mac Allister. And that's my thing. And that's why I always get confused when people call him that, because I'm like, but you're not seeing a consistent player. What you're seeing is a player who's just reached like this kind of borderline. It's like you're borderline, you're trying to get in through the door, but the reality is the door's not really opening for you. You need to maybe try a little bit harder or push a little bit harder, and then things will then start to kind of work for you, in terms of then being called this world class kind of player. And I think for me, that's when I can then say, okay, world class player performing like it. I'm seeing it on a consistent basis, rare tear, whatever kind of thing. At the moment, I'm just not seeing it. And by the way, I even mentioned Vitinha earlier. I don't even think Vitinha's a world class player. And look at the season he's just bloody had. But guess what? You need to do this consistently. Unfortunately, one season is never going to be enough. And Mac Allister definitely ain't had that one season. You could say he's had, if you want to, actually, you could total it up in terms of the time that Alexis Mac Allister's been here, and maybe like the periods. If you totaled it up, it probably does actually equal a season. So you know what? I'll give him one season. I'm going to be nice, and I'm going to give him one season. Show me the season that you can, for an actual full season, you can actually be consistent at this level, like in terms of a high level, world class level. Show me that. I'm calling you a world class player. Until then, no way. And I will keep harping on about this, and I'll keep calling all of you out about this until we see it. Because when you see it, you guys are going to turn around and say, I get it. I know it. I know it, because we've seen it with every player that you deem to be world class, right? And obviously, I know everyone's got their own opinions on what's world class and who is world class and rare tear. But there are obviously general consensus in terms of certain players. So the Van Dijks and the Salahs, as I mentioned before, the Lamine Yamals and stuff like that. When you just watch someone, you're like, this brother is performing at such a high level so consistently. I have to call this guy world class. I have to. And that's what you're going to see with Alexis Mac Allister. I know you're going to see it, because I believe he can get there. At the moment, he's not there. That's what I want for Alexis Mac Allister moving forward. I want him to perform at that level consistently, and that's what's next for him. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section about Alexis Mac Allister. I've been rapping for about 20 odd minutes. So I just want to know you guys' thoughts on Alexis Mac Allister, your true thoughts. Like, do you genuinely believe he's a world class? And I think I've done a video on this as well about Alexis Mac Allister. Is he world class and rare tear? And I love some of the comments that some people made. It's just one of them kind of conversations, right? Just let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and I'll catch you guys soon with another What's Next. Peace.